Hey guys, Mike here. So, boy, what a day on Friday, and it looks like old Jerome better have those psychiatry bills paid up. I told you guys eventually he's going to start getting hammered, and oh man, Friday the president was all over him. So, we're going to go into all of that drama right there, which was fun and interesting. Also, the data we got out, how hedge funds are making an absolute killing, and they don't want volatility to go down right now. That is for sure, because that's how a lot of them are making their money right now. And then we'll get into the chart, especially like some that look really good, like a Netflix. And then, of course, Tesla, look at that one because it just amazes me. No matter what news comes out about that thing, it just continues to stay in that little box we talked about. And we'll go over some other ones as well, especially some stocks I'm definitely going to keep a close eye on to see if there is a type of rotation over like the next 3 to 4 weeks coming up here. But if you want to feel better about something, I found this video of Stanley Druckenmiller. And just imagine trying to put yourself in his shoes right here, how you would feel if this happened to you and you had to go tell your boss.
When I was at Soros, I shorted $200 million worth of internet stocks in March of '99, and in 3 weeks covered them at a $600 million loss. I lost $600 million on a $200 million investment in 3 weeks. I was short 12 stocks. They all went bankrupt. Every one of them.
Oh, can you imagine that? Like having to go tell your boss, like, hey man, I'm so sorry. Lost 600 million, but by the way, I was right. And then they end up going bankrupt. Like, you know, later on, probably 2000, mid 2000, somewhere in there. So just thought that was an amazing thing. Of course, he's considered one of the greatest ever. So I mean, obviously a successful man, but yeah, it just shows you even the best can make some big losses there. Okay, so but getting into what President Trump said and then everything that came after that, you can see right here he came out and said that the ECB expect to cut rates, which they did, by the way, for the 7th time. And now Jerome Powell has a new nickname. It's called Too Late. And I love those nicknames. So Jerome Powell of the Fed right here, who is always too late and wrong, yesterday issued a report which was another and typical complete mess. Oil prices are down, groceries, even eggs are down, and the USA is getting rich on tariffs. Too late should have lowered interest rates like the ECB long ago, but he should certainly lower them now. Powell's termination cannot come fast enough. Now, of course, he's talking about the interview, which I showed you clips of. And, of course, when Jerome Powell's talking about, tariffs will most certainly cause probably inflation, prices to go higher, all that fun stuff. And he was asked, like, if the stock market started crashing, would you step in? He said, no, with an exclamation point. And so that does not make, obviously, President Trump happy. It got so bad, he came out so many times, and he was just saying, he said, well, if I want him gone, he'd be gone right now. Now, of course, Jerome Powell works for an independent agency. There is a lawsuit right now going through the courts where President Trump is asking to fire these other independent agencies over there. And so he wants the power to be handed to the presidency, the executive branch, to be able to just, unilaterally fire these independent agency heads. Okay. And there's a lot of independent agency heads. And so now people are saying, well, no, that the Fed's not actually included in that lawsuit. That we don't know. And so the big question will be is, let's say they say, yeah, sure, you can fire independent agencies and not really just single out which ones they're talking about. And he fires Jerome Powell. Like, will they win in the court? Will he leave? Because Jerome Powell said he's not leaving because the president doesn't have that kind of power, and he doesn't. It's called checks and balances. And it got to the point where even the Treasury Secretary came out and said, we don't need to be talking about firing the head of the Fed. And trust me, you do not want any president, for that matter, to have the power to fire who's ever in charge of the Fed because he's unhappy with them. The whole point in having the Fed over there as an independent agency or entity is the fact that they don't make decisions based on politics. That's what you don't want. Can you imagine that? That would be a disaster. No matter what you think about Jerome Powell or any of the rest of them or what kind of job they do, behind the scenes, even currently, they're doing stuff to calm the bond market, try to make sure they prop things up. We just don't know what's going on. All the central banks around the world do that. And so, and it's up to him, by the way. I mean, they have all these Fed presidents that come in and vote. Like, they can't just vote like 12-2 or however many there is. And then Jerome Powell goes, nah, I feel like we need to do this right here. And just say screw their votes, basically. So it isn't just him. And again, his term is over in May next year. So they're already going to start interviewing and picking out people to replace him with. And, of course, what's supposed to happen, the president says, here's who I want. They go through Congress. They go, cool, here's the stamp. And that's it. That's the way it's supposed to go. And then they can serve out their term. The biggest problem is there's just been so many of these independent agencies, I think, developed or created over the years, over like 20, 25 years. That's probably where people are a little upset about. But the Fed's not one of those ones I would classify as that. So let me know what you think about that. But again, it'll make for good drama. We'll see how it keeps going. Let me know what you think about the new nickname, Too Late, which the Fed normally is. I mean, they have they have a history of this, okay? And this Fed is probably going to be that way just because they got burned on inflation the first time and made it look like fools. So we'll see what happens on that. Now, the data we got out real quick here, you had the initial jobless claims, which came in lower than expected, and what are you seeing? It keeps going down, right? Continuous jobless claims kind of just stay where they're at. You're not going to get any reaction out of the market on this kind of job data until you have a big spike, and you get about 250K on there. Now, when you get around 325 to 400, you look historically, that means we're in a recession pretty much. You can almost guarantee it. But here, we just need a bigger spike up if you really want the market to pay attention. Right now, that's just not happening. When you look over at the government stuff, you can tell most people live in Virginia, right, who work for the government. Well, they're seeing it over there, these layoffs and things like that, and these firings, because you can see they got a big spike going on up. And so, when's it going to hit the mainstream? Who knows? Because the way they're doing this, a lot of people are taking out buyouts, so they retire early. A lot of them taking these severance packages, so they're getting paid for months, most likely. All this fun stuff. So I think that spike's probably going to come from the people that were on probation that all got let go. And so that's probably what that is. But we'll see when it finally pops up in the main data. And then some other data which doesn't look great. You got the Philadelphia Fed Business Outlook Survey. Boy, that's a big drop, man. That is a big drop. Look at that right there. Holy moly. Then you got the Business Outlook Survey index number of employees as far as what they think. And that's holding in there, right? Because a lot of people don't even want to let the people go. They're afraid they won't get them back. And I've already showed you, there's always open jobs and not enough people to fill them and stuff. So remember, first phase is the freeze hiring. Second phase, the cut hours. And then third phase, start laying off. Well, so far, we're not at the third phase at this point in time. Now, when we look over here at the VIX, obviously, this level keeps holding right here. But boy, if we can get underneath that, because now, finally broke that trend line right there. Again, got that daily fair value gap, got a gap below it. And if this thing can get like 25, then you can actually start talking about at least, 5, 6, 7 day type of rally going on. But I can tell you the hedge funds don't want that because, boy, they're making a killing, man. I mean, the bid-ask spread over the last, basically since this whole sell-off started, hadn't seen it since 2020. And before that, it goes back to 2012. And so they're making a killing on this stuff. They're like, please keep the volatility up. It is wonderful. And plus, traders also probably don't mind being up either because you get these big old swings and stuff. So, but yeah, they're making, I forgot how many billions it was they're making. Now, getting into the index here, the SPX, it is basically jammed right now between the low anchor VWAP on that crash over there and then our all-time high anchor VWAP. You can see up there at the top, but that's what saved it the other day. Again, it's broke this trend line. I'm going to take that away, setting in a discount. So that's why they keep buying this up every time it comes down, even though it's super volatile with these nice big, 0.5%, 1% swings, all that fun stuff. And so there's no longer wedging in there. It's basically it's in this range from like 52.18 up to around 54.64. All right. And so we're going to see if they just kind of stay in that range while they see what's going on with all these trade deals, what's getting announced. We keep hearing we're going to get trade deals here and there. And so far there's been 0 announced. Obviously you heard the EU say there hasn't been much progress. China's not picking up the phone right now. And that's really the big ones. Canada, you probably heard, I mean, they took off the automobile retaliation tariff. So that was a decent thing to see. But when you look over here, I mean, these levels, 53.97 is going to be one. If we start coming back up to it, which should be resistance. Again, we close below the JPM collar again. And so if you can get above that, that'll actually be a plus. But it's just, man, the news, the tweets, the data, it's just creating this crazy daily market right now that we're seeing where we open up green, sell it all off, start coming back up again. And so, like I said, the hedge funds are making a killing with these spreads. They're going to want to keep it that way. And so next week, of course, we'll have a full day. But really, the question is on the earnings. How is the market going to react to these earnings? Because, as you can see, the reason why they keep buying this up is we're in this discount, right? I drew this fib from that high down to the low right there. And so they keep buying it up for now. But if we can't get above that JPM collar and we break that anchor VWAP right there, we're definitely coming down that 0.79 fib for sure. Okay, now we don't have any earnings next week that should drive us down there because there's no heavyweights in it yet. But you'll see at the end how many there are, and there's a bunch. And the biggest thing is the junk bond market. This is why people keep saying that things are broken right now. And so only 13 billion issued so far this month versus 52.5 billion average. As rates climb, obviously borrowing costs are spiking from low rate firms. Goldman now sees hitting 5 to 8% default. And this affects who? Really those companies, especially on IWM, right? Smaller companies, mid-cap companies, that kind of stuff. And so you can, I mean, I've showed you these charts before. It shouldn't be no shock. And that's a big move up, very quick move up. And so that definitely needs to resolve in order for smaller mid caps, especially, to be functioning properly and to calm the market down to say, okay, things aren't broken. Here we go. We're okay. That kind of stuff. And that leads us into a stock that actually has a good chart, which is Netflix, which reported Thursday. Went up pretty good. I think it would have went up more, honestly, on that earnings it gave, but we were closed on Friday. Nobody wants to hold over a weekend. And obviously, we're in a rough stock market right now. It didn't break its all-time highs. A lot of people expected to do that. Won't be surprised. But this chart, you can see, just beautiful structure. I mean, coming up, coming down that fair value gap, bouncing after testing support. Same thing right there. Exact same thing right there. So it's just stair-stepping up, right? It's got above that trend line breakout. We'll see if it can get above and close above that high. If it does, then I think you'll definitely see it hit a new high, especially if the market can actually get any kind of signs of life to it where it can extend for 2, 3, 4 days of a rally and get a real relief rally like you've seen in other bear markets and things of that nature. And then you go to Tesla and you see the opposite chart, just sitting here in this zone that we talked about, waiting for earnings on Tuesday. It looks like obviously every single day it goes down a little bit, but it just amazes me when I show you this other chart. I'm going to show you on their sales. If that was Nvidia or any other company, this thing would have tanked. But Tesla, it just holds up and holds up to see what's going to happen on earnings. And as you know, as soon as they start saying robots and autonomous taxis, all of a sudden, the algos go crazy. People go nuts to say, that's right, it's not a car company, it's a tech company. Now we remember. And so that's why I put the box above, because it ain't going to, Tesla never surprises me anymore. I'm telling you right now. And it's just hanging that 0.79 fib. Now, if they delay autonomous taxis or people come to the reality or the grip of wow, we might not be making any kind of money or anything for a while off these robots and these autonomous taxis, well, maybe we're coming down here then. And that's around between 180, 185 will be a good target for that. Because, you just look at these sales on cars, which is the majority of their earnings, right? This is abysmal. If that was NVIDIA with their chip sales and stuff, oh, can you imagine? NVIDIA goes down 5% on the littlest news. Can you imagine? Look at that. That's terrible. That is, I can't wait. This is one earnings call I will not miss. There's no doubt about it. Let me know what you think in the comments about that. Now, NVIDIA, I'm going to do this for the fun of it. This is a weekly chart. Wouldn't this be awesome, though? If this thing turned out to be a gigantic head and shoulders in the weekly, came up to where that's a 200 weekly, that's a 200 moving average, the 50 weekly moving average, golden pocket, and a weekly fair value gap. That is the perfect rejection point, plus that descending trend line, right? And it lines up perfectly, again, just for fun here, to sit there and look at this. And so what you would have is a 25% rally here or there to get back up to that point in time, and then boom, it would bring us down to that shaded box, which would be fantastic. I think it'd be a whole lot of buyers coming in there. And it also lines up with the inverse head and shoulders on the daily if that were to happen. And so it'd be a nice rally up. Let me know about that. If it rallied up to get to there, would you sell or would you hold or would you add? That's really the bigger question on it. But it can't be that simple. It'd be nice if it was, but I seriously doubt it's going to end up being that simple for NVIDIA. Now, Uber is another one here. Watch this one. It's coming up into major resistance here, but it's held up really well, compared to a lot of stocks. A lot of people love Uber. A lot of, cash flow, all that good stuff. The numbers are looking good. And so that's why it's probably held up well. And, a lot of retailers like it as well. And so, you pull up the momentum indicators, and what's it tell you? When you look at that momentum indicators compared to a lot of stocks, again, RSI above 50, MACD's trying to get above that zero line, which would absolutely, if it gets above the zero line, it's going to push through that resistance right there, which is going to be a big thing. Weekly, never, it's above 50 right here, as you can see. The MACD never fell below the zero line. And so that's a plus right there. And if we go through here and start readjusting the fib, and as you draw the fib from the bottom, you can see the golden pocket is going to be where it's heading up into now. If it breaks through that and gets through that trend line, as you can see, that will be the 0.79 fib. So these are definitely areas where you'll start to see rejections or momentum stall out, things of that nature. But just watch and see if it gets through there. Now, looking at the defensive stocks is what I'm going to be watching for any kind of rotation. You can see AT&T looks like a head and shoulders. Coke, Hershey's, all these are coming up into resistance right now. And these other stocks are just so hammered down. And again, any rally in the market is nothing but a relief rally or a short covering at this point in time. But if you start to see multiple days where these are going red and the other stocks we talk about, which are just hammered down, are going green, that will be a clear sign of rotation. And maybe people are like, well, maybe there's not going to be a recession. What's happening? And this could happen. What could trigger it is obviously if deals start getting done, things start kind of getting chilled out when it comes to monetary policy and things of that nature. And the bond market, and especially, like we talked about with HYG, the spreads start to decrease, things like that. It happens, okay? And so this is definitely something I want to see if it takes place, because I already know, like, hedge funds are selling European stocks right now, so where's the money going, right? That's the big question. I mean, Dollar General here, it's going to start coming into resistance as the big move up it's had off the bottom right there. And so again, all these are considered defensive right there. And I'm even hearing like people talking about Celsius. I told you this, like it's defensive. It continues to grind up on that trend line, which we talked about, I believe, on Wednesday. And when the market's red, sometimes this thing is green. So it's just kind of marching its way up there. If it breaks that trend line, it's going to come down that weekly fair value gap between like 28 and 32 bucks right in there. But again, you draw the fib from the top to the bottom, it's not even close to a discount right now, being in a discount where people would really sell the 0.5 fib, things of that nature. So, and people can make up whatever they want to when it comes to a defensive stock and say, oh yeah, people are going to buy energy drinks and they're going to keep watching Netflix. I mean, that's kind of the way it is. I'm hearing that about Netflix as well. Now, when it comes to earnings, Tuesday, you'll see some of these names which you want to hear from. Verizon, then like 3 different defense stocks right there, as you can see. Halliburton's another one. See what's going on with the oil. Now it's kind of popping up, but it's still super low, right? Then there's Tesla. Then you have Enphase, Capital One, which is a consumer bank. Definitely want to hear what they're seeing from the consumer and everything. Then Wednesday, Boeing, AT&T will be 2 good ones to listen to. And then that night, you got the auto parts, Alaska Airlines, IBM, ServiceNow, Chipotle. I want to hear what they're saying, and especially what's going on with the consumer. Anything that's got to do with the consumer is what I want to listen to more than anything. Newmont, Texas Instruments. Then you got Sands. Are people still gambling? That's a big one. Then you got your travel stocks, Southwest, American Airlines. What are they seeing? PepsiCo's be another good one, Valero. And then you'll have some heavy hitters, Intel, Alphabet, and that night, Vail's another one to listen to. And I never listen to these guys, but I'll definitely listen to them this time. And then Friday, ConocoPhillips, probably AbbVie, are people going to be talking about. Now, when it comes to data, very, very light on the data. There's not hardly any red folder news that's worth anything next week, which is kind of good, right? Monday, CB leading index month over month. Then you have Richmond Manufacturing Index on Tuesday. Wednesday, finally get some kind of red folder news with flash manufacturing PMI, flash services PMI, new home sales, crude oil inventories. Then on Thursday, unemployment claims, core durable goods orders month over month, existing new home sales. And then Friday, I can't imagine it's going to be good, but University of Michigan consumer sentiment and inflation expectations. Let me know how you think that's going to turn out. So anyway, that's what we got for the week. So please hit that like, subscribe button on your way out. Think about signing up for membership, less than McDonald's combo, and I'll see you guys on Monday.